Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to talk about if Palantir, Tesla, and the growth stock that you like is on the way up from here. I came across a very interesting video from CNBC that I think is going to worth your time to watch. And I want to react to this video because maybe our growth stocks are on the way up from here. And it's always darkest before the sunrise. So if you haven't yet, please make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you want to go further, check out the first link in the description box below, which takes you to our Patreon, where you can sign up for $5 a month, get direct access to me and to all the valuations that we use on the channel. So let's begin this video.
The index is down 9% in the past month. Our next guest says growth and small caps will still work this year. Joining us now is EMJ Capital founder, president, and portfolio manager, Eric Jackson. It's good to see you. I mean, you do realize that we're in the midst of this losing streak, right? It's like 7 days and counting now.
Well, we're sort of back to the mid-June pessimism in the market, Scott. Even though the NASDAQ is still about 4% higher than where it was back then, but people are ready to slit their wrists again. I do think, though, that there's a lot of, you have to be bullish when everyone's so bearish. And the reason why I'm optimistic going into this second half of this year is that you asked in the last session, Scott, like, what do you need to look for? I think the most important factor is inflation. We're going to get a print next week, obviously, with inflation. We're going to get others in the remainder of the year. And I think that's what the market's going to key in on. If you go back to 1981, 82, which is sort of the height of the inflation, the big inflation scare with Paul Volcker, what happened is that the market dropped, NASDAQ dropped something like 29% over 10 months from into the bottom in mid 82. But then what happened? Inflation fell out of bed. It dropped from like the 9s and 8s past kind of 6, got into the 5s, and suddenly the market took off. Basically, NASDAQ doubled over the next 10 months, which is sort of the equivalent of what it did off of the 2020 bottom through the end of 2020. And so growth stocks, if this market sniffs out that inflation is rolling over, and Jeremy Siegel is right, like he said on your show last week, that all these indicators are showing that that's what's happening, we could be in for a big shock. And the move we saw in growth stocks in June could be just the start.
So I love what he says. I mean, obviously anything can happen to the market, but it is logical. So he is, first of all, saying that everybody's ready to cut their wrists and everybody is so bearish that you almost have to just be bullish because everybody is so bearish, right? I mean, Palantir at $7 is an insanely low price and is basically down the toilet, and nobody other than some crazy people on YouTube and some crazy, very long-term investors won't have anything to do with it. And currently it's mostly true of almost all growth stocks. I mean, obviously I mentioned Palantir and Tesla because that's the stock that I hold, but any growth stocks is pretty much the same story. And what's really, really interesting is the stock market is forward looking and people start to forget that. So right now everybody's looking at, oh my God, the interest rates are going higher. But guess what? And the inflation, we don't know what's happening with the inflation and the Russia-Ukraine war. But all of this is priced in. Like everything is priced into max negativity. But what happens here if inflation falls out of bed and starts going towards 5? I mean, the historical example is that the stock market will he said that in the 80s it doubled, which is what it did from the COVID bottoms to the COVID highs, which would be crazy. I don't think that's going to happen. But you remember this nice rally that we got in June, and maybe that was just a taste of it.
I know, but you said you've got to be bullish when everybody else is bearish. I mean, you don't have to be anything if everybody who's bearish is right. And if inflation is sticky and rents don't come down, and there's no indication really that they are. I'll give you what's happening at the pump, and I'm glad for that, obviously, like everybody else is. But it is way too early, and you even heard the Unilever CEO with Sarah in the prior hour suggest it is too early to declare inflation has peaked, and he even said that they continue to raise prices. It flies in the face of all clear is coming from the inflation front.
Well, everyone's going to go off of past, backwards looking indicators, Scott. And so, and everyone has to say that, the Fed has to say that right now. But the market, it moves so quickly, and the market's not going to sniff out backwards looking data. It's going to sniff out what's happening in the moment. So it sniffs something, over the summer in the big rally that we saw from mid-June into the beginnings of August. And we're going to see next week, whether we've got a start of a trend here in terms of a decel in inflation. And if that happens, these growth stocks, many of which have been in a bear market for over 18 months now, just are so cheap historically, from a multiple perspective, that you'll miss out, I think, if you don't have some exposure to them.
So the stocks you like, and the first one I want to talk about is one that has had...
Again, I have to agree with what he's saying, is that if the stock market sniffs out that there is a change, the stocks are going to skyrocket. So sometimes when you're a long-term investor, you have to be buying on the hope and knowing that, the stock market has been in a bull trend the last 100 years. If your goal is to invest when inflation is handled, the economy is going again and the Fed is lowering interest rates, the stocks will be back to previous highs and everything will be too expensive again.
A renewed sense of optimism around it, and that's Uber, right? I mean, it feels like that story has started to turn significantly, not only from a business standpoint, but from a stock performance standpoint.
Okay, now they're going into Uber, and I don't care much about Uber and some other stocks that I don't care about. I obviously care about my Tesla and my Palantir, and I care about being able to use the discount or fate has given us. So let me know what you guys think. Obviously, this is not investment advice. Anything can happen. It's just super logical what the guy is saying. I hope it plays out what he's saying, and I hope that you guys could load the boat with whatever you wanted to load the boat with. And let me know in the comments what are those shares that you're buying, or if you're not buying, then why not and what are you doing? So thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.